There is a moment in life when you realize you've been moving pieces without ever seeing the board. You wake up, make choices, react to what comes, and yet something inside whispers that this isn't random. That whisper is right. Life is not a wild battlefield where you survive by luck. It is a chessboard where every square, every move, every apparent obstacle has its place. You are not just one of the pieces. You are the player. You are the designer. You are the one who chooses the rules by the way you think, the way you feel, the way you assume reality will respond to you. Florence Scovel Shinn called life a game, and she wasn't being lighthearted. She was revealing that, like any game, there are principles that govern its flow, principles you can learn, master, and live by. The mistake most make is believing the rules are written by something outside themselves, something unpredictable, something that could turn against them at any moment. And so they brace for impact, instead of designing the outcome. They move reactively instead of strategically. They forget that the power of the game is not in the chaos, but in the structure hidden beneath it. Neville Goddard would say that your imagination is the real rule book. Every assumption you hold, every inner image you accept as true, becomes a move that rearranges the pieces before you. The board does not fight you. It reflects you. When you act from the state of already being who you wish to be, the game reshapes to match that state. The question is never whether the game is fair. The question is, which version of you is playing right now? The reason this truth feels so distant is because of the code you've been running since you were a child. Bruce Lipton explains that your subconscious programs, built from years of repeated beliefs and emotional imprints, are like the hidden lines of code in a game, determining what you see, how you respond, and even which moves you think are possible. If you've been taught scarcity, you'll see fewer opportunities. If you've been taught fear, you'll misread the signs. But code can be rewritten, and when you rewrite the code, the game responds instantly, without needing years of force or struggle. This is where your shift begins, to stop bracing against what you fear and start designing what you choose. It is a different way of living, one where the external no longer dictates the internal. In the minutes ahead, we will walk through what I call the cheat codes of life. Not shortcuts that skip the work of awareness, but principles that remove unnecessary friction, so you can play with clarity, precision, and joy. You will see that winning here has nothing to do with crushing an opponent and everything to do with mastering your own state. Before we begin, I want you to pause. Take a slow, steady breath in through your nose. Hold it. Let it go gently through your mouth. Feel your shoulders soften, your jaw loosen, the space around you open just a little more. This is not a race. The game doesn't speed up when you panic. It becomes clearer when you're still. The victory you seek is not somewhere far ahead. It's already built into the board. And by the end of this journey, you'll know exactly how to make every move count. Play. Don't battle. There is a heaviness that settles over you when you believe life is a fight. You wake each morning with your guard up, scanning for threats, bracing for problems, and calling that being realistic. Yet all the while, you are tightening the very knots you wish to untangle. Florence Scovel Shinn spoke of life as a game because she understood that challenges are not enemies. They are moves on the board, each inviting a creative response. When you see a challenge as an opponent to defeat, you drain your energy into resistance. But when you see it as a puzzle, something to be approached with curiosity and precision, you step out of the arena and onto the playing field where strategy, not struggle, decides the outcome. The real opponent has never been the person, the circumstance, or the event in front of you. The real opponent is the state of mind that interprets every move as a threat. Neville Goddard taught that your inner state decides the world you perceive. If you begin the day from a place of scarcity, you will see scarcity in every square you land on. If you begin from a state of fullness, even the challenges look like doors disguised as walls. The shift is not about fighting harder. It is about choosing a new vantage point from which the entire game changes shape. There is a question worth asking before you make your next move. How would you play if you had already won? Let that question settle in your chest for a moment. If the outcome were guaranteed, would you waste your energy on panic, or would you play with calm precision? Would you see setbacks as proof of loss, or as the clever turns that make victory sweeter? This is not wishful thinking. It is the reorientation of your entire nervous system toward the assumption of success. Bruce Lipton would tell you that your biology listens to your perception. The body mirrors the mind, and when the mind expects a win, the body stops bracing for a blow. Begin to see yourself not as a soldier in battle, but as a strategist in play. You are not here to survive a war. You are here to move pieces with intention, to weave your way through the board with the quiet confidence of someone who knows the end has already been written in their favor. When you release the need to fight, you release the tension that keeps you from seeing the moves that matter. The game has never been about overpowering life. It has always been about mastering the art of playing it. Your words are the controller. Every game has a tool that directs the action. In life, that tool is your word. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that words carry the energy of creation, shaping the field before you ever make a visible move. Each word you speak is like a command entered into the code of the game, one that the invisible mechanics of life instantly begin to process. Many underestimate the quiet power of speech, believing that casual expressions of frustration or doubt carry no weight. Yet the game listens to every signal you send, whether whispered in solitude or spoken in a crowded room. Neville Goddard echoed this truth when he urged us to speak from the end, not from the lack. To speak from the end is to let your words be the language of the state you have already entered. It is not saying, "I want to be successful," but "I am living in success now." Words reveal where you are dwelling in consciousness, and the game responds to that dwelling place as the only reality. When you repeat the language of absence, you anchor yourself to the square you wish to leave. When you speak the language of fulfillment, you quietly step into the square where the desired reality already exists. The shift can be subtle, yet its effects are immediate. Imagine a negotiation in which one person says, "I'm hoping this works out," while another says, "I'm glad we found the right agreement." The first is casting a vote for uncertainty, while the second is casting a vote for completion. The difference is not in arrogance but in assumption. Bruce Lipton would remind you that the body responds to these words as if they are fact, releasing the chemistry of either stress or ease depending on the tone you choose. It is worth becoming aware of the phrases that leave your lips in unguarded moments. Do they affirm a state you wish to live in, or do they rehearse the very state you want to outgrow? The game is not impressed by declarations made once in the morning and forgotten by afternoon. It bends to the steady repetition of a chosen truth. Each phrase becomes a move on the board, nudging the pieces into position. When your words are shaped by the identity of the player who has already won, the game begins to obey in ways that no external force could achieve. Non-resistance is the hidden power-up. There is a quiet law at work in this game. What you fight grows stronger. The more you grip tightly to what you do not want, the more space it occupies on your board. Florence Scovel Shinn compared unwanted events to pieces you do not need to engage with. Let them pass through without anchoring them with emotion. It is not passivity, it is mastery. You recognize the piece, acknowledge its presence, and then choose not to waste your turn reacting to it. The trap is easy to fall into. Something happens that stirs fear, anger, or disappointment, and you immediately pull it close by talking about it, replaying it in your mind and treating it as if it has power over you. Neville Goddard would remind you that your inner attention is the true currency of the game. Whatever you attend to grows in your world, not because the event is inherently strong, but because you are feeding it the fuel of your awareness. Bruce Lipton's work on the biology of stress shows us that when you resist an unwanted situation with tension, your body floods with hormones that prepare you for loss. The mind narrows its focus to detect threats, and in doing so, it loses sight of opportunities. Non-resistance is not surrender to defeat. It is a shift into a state where your biology and consciousness remain open to the next move. This is the essence of what I call dropping the rope. Picture yourself in a tug of war with a shadowy opponent. The harder you pull, the harder it pulls back. But the moment you release your grip, the tension disappears, and the opponent stumbles into nothingness. In life, releasing the rope looks like letting go of the need to mentally wrestle with what has already happened. You return to your vision, to your inner scene, to the state of already living the reality you have chosen. The board rearranges not because you fought harder, but because you refuse to anchor your power in the square you wanted to leave. Non-resistance is not the absence of action. It is the choice to spend every move on what you are building, not on what you are trying to avoid. Letting go of control unlocks the next level. Control feels safe, but in truth it is often the very thing that locks you into scarcity. When you grip the pieces of the game too tightly, you begin to mistake force for strategy. Florence Scovel. Shin spoke of allowing intuition rather than obsession to lead your moves. There is a difference between holding the picture of what you desire and smothering it with the weight of constant monitoring. The first keeps you in creative flow. The second traps you in the tension of waiting. Neville Goddard's teachings make this even clearer. When you dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you release the compulsion to check if it has arrived. You act from the state of "it is done," not "is it here yet?" That quiet confidence signals to the game that the level has already been unlocked, and the pieces shift to reflect that reality. The paradox is that the less you push, the faster the right doors appear, because your energy is no longer tangled in proving or forcing. Bruce Lipton's insights into the mind-body connection show us why this shift is so powerful. Obsession triggers the body's stress response, which narrows perception and makes you see only the absence of what you want. Creative surrender, holding the vision while releasing the urgency, opens the body to possibility, allowing the nervous system to relax into a state where solutions become visible. It is not about doing nothing. It is about acting from trust instead of compulsion. Consider the athlete who trains with focus but performs best when they release the pressure of the scoreboard. The talent was always there, but the moment they stopped forcing the outcome, their natural rhythm returned. The game of life works the same way. Letting go of control is not giving up. It is stepping into the role of the player who knows they have already reached the next level, even before the board has finished rearranging itself. Selfless love changes the game board. There is a frequency that changes the entire configuration of the game, and that frequency is love. Not the love that bargains or clings, but the love that expands freely, without calculation. Florence Scovel Shin taught that love dissolves blockages and restores harmony to the field. It softens what is rigid, smooths what is rough, and turns resistance into cooperation. Love is not sentimental here. It is strategic in the most profound way, because it changes the very atmosphere in which the game is played. Neville Goddard added a vital truth. You cannot intend harm for another without that same harm taking root within yourself. The board is not divided into your side and their side. It is one interconnected field, and whatever you project onto another's square inevitably touches your own. When your intentions are steeped in selfless love, you move in a way that benefits the whole, and in doing so, you invite a flood of moves in your favor that no force could have summoned. Imagine the people connected to your desire, the ones who might open the door, offer the opportunity, sign the agreement. In a state of selfless love, you begin to see them not as resources to be used, but as fellow players whose victories can also be your own. Bruce Lipton's research on coherence between the heart and mind shows that this state of emotional alignment sends a signal the body and environment both recognize as safety, as openness. In this state, the game board itself seems to rearrange to create win-win outcomes. Think of love as a patch in the code, repairing glitches in relationships, misunderstandings, and missed connections. It upgrades the way the game responds to you, because you are no longer moving with the narrow vision of self-protection, but with the expanded vision of shared success. When love becomes the baseline from which you play, the game ceases to be a series of isolated moves and becomes a living network of support, one where your next victory is tied to the victories you inspire in others. Intuition is the compass. There is a kind of guidance that bypasses logic, yet always leads to the most precise move. Florence Scovel Shin described intuition as the game map, revealing pathways that reason alone cannot uncover. It is not about guessing blindly. It is about listening to the quiet pull that points you toward a square you might have otherwise ignored. Intuition often appears in moments of stillness, when the mind is no longer frantically trying to calculate every possibility and the heart is allowed to speak. The challenge for many is that they have been trained to trust only what can be measured or explained. Neville Goddard taught that imagination and intuition are deeply connected, both drawing from the same inner source that sees beyond the immediate layout of the board. Logic has its place, but overplanning can block the moves that arrive through synchronicity. The more tightly you insist on a specific route, the more you risk closing off the better one that intuition was already preparing for you. Bruce Lipton's perspective on the subconscious adds another layer to this. The body itself often receives intuitive impressions before the conscious mind does. A shift in breath, a tightening in the chest, a sudden calm in the midst of uncertainty. These signals are not random. They are the nervous system translating subtle information that the conscious mind has not yet processed. By honoring these signals, you begin to navigate the game in a way that feels guided rather than forced. There are times when the next move will not make sense to anyone else. It may even defy your own previous plans. Yet, when you follow the inner compass, you often find that the square it leads to unlocks opportunities you could not have planned. In the game of life, intuition is not a luxury. It is the tool that ensures you are moving in harmony with a larger design, one that is already arranging the board in your favor. Imagination is the game engine. At the center of every move you make is an image, sometimes clear and vivid, sometimes faint and unconscious. Neville Goddard taught that the world is imagination objectified, that everything you see on the board began first as an unseen scene within. Your imagination is not a daydreaming tool. It is the engine that generates the reality you will eventually call fact. Every square you land on exists because, at some level, you accepted its possibility in your mind before you ever stepped onto it. The trap, however, is that imagination is always at work, whether directed or not. Many use it unconsciously to create elaborate fear scenarios, rehearsing loss, failure, or rejection. The mind lingers on these inner plays until they feel real, and soon the game begins to mirror them. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this when she advised flooding the inner screen with scenes that align with your desired end. She knew that if you could saturate the mind with a picture of the outcome you choose and feel it as natural, the game could not help but rearrange to match it. This is where discipline becomes essential, not discipline in effort but in focus. Bruce Lipton's insights into neuroplasticity reveal that the brain reorganizes itself according to the patterns you feed it most often. Repeating an inner scene with feeling wires the nervous system to expect it, and expectation is the signal the game responds to most quickly. When your body begins to feel the relief, joy, or confidence of the fulfilled vision now, the gap between inner and outer reality begins to dissolve. Imagination is not pretending. It is rehearsing the truth you have chosen to live in. When the scenes you dwell on become so familiar that they feel like memory, you are no longer playing toward a goal. You are playing from it. In that state, every move you make naturally aligns with the reality you have already claimed, and the game, as if recognizing its own script, unfolds in perfect rhythm with your inner design. Gratitude is the score multiplier. There is a hidden mechanism in the game that amplifies whatever it touches, and that mechanism is gratitude. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that gratitude increases every blessing, not only by recognizing what has already appeared but by expanding the field for more to arrive. True gratitude is not reactive. It is preemptive. It is the quiet joy of thanking life for what is not yet visible as though it were already here, which shifts your position on the board instantly. Neville Goddard spoke of living in the end, and gratitude is one of the most direct ways to do so. When you express thanks for something before it arrives, you are speaking from the state of fulfillment, and the game mirrors that state. Gratitude in this form is not a performance. It is an inner alignment that says, I have received, even if your senses have not yet confirmed it. In that moment, your moves are no longer those of a player seeking victory. They are the moves of one who is already living it. Neuroscience supports this deeply. Bruce Lipton's work, alongside other research, shows that gratitude rewires the brain's dopamine and reward pathways. The act of sincere appreciation not only changes your mood, it shifts your entire chemistry toward openness and receptivity. In this state, you notice possibilities you would have overlooked in a mindset of lack. You begin to treat the present moment as if it already contains the seed of everything you desire, which, in truth, it does. Imagine spending an entire day immersed in gratitude, not only for the things you can see but for the unseen arrangements already unfolding on your behalf. The board seems to come alive under your feet. The pieces move with less resistance. Connections happen fluidly, and your perception of the game shifts from chasing outcomes to savoring each step. Gratitude multiplies the score not because it manipulates the system, but because it tunes you into the frequency where winning is the natural state. Faith is the only real currency. In this game, there is a single currency that unlocks every level, opens every door, and secures every move. And that currency is faith. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that faith is not fragile hope, but a steady knowing that the outcome you choose is already in motion. It is the invisible asset that cannot be measured on any visible scale. Yet without it, the game cannot proceed in your favor. Faith is not about convincing yourself repeatedly. It is about becoming loyal to a reality that exists beyond what the senses presently confirm. Neville Goddard described faith as loyalty to the unseen reality. When you invest in that unseen state as though it were already here, you no longer play from desperation or doubt. You play with the ease of one who knows their moves are simply revealing what has already been decided. Faith allows you to step forward even when there is no apparent bridge, and somehow, as your foot touches the square, the bridge appears beneath you. It is the quiet certainty that the game board will respond because it always has, even when you did not notice. From a biological perspective, Bruce Lipton's understanding of the mind-body connection shows that faith keeps the body in a state of coherence. When you believe deeply in a chosen reality, your nervous system aligns with it, sending consistent signals that support your moves rather than undermine them. The absence of faith, on the other hand, scatters your focus and keeps the game locked at the same level, because your energy is divided between the desired outcome and the fear of its absence. Think of faith as the coins you drop into the arcade machine of life. Without them, the game does not begin. With them, every move has meaning. Every step becomes part of the victory. Faith does not require proof. It generates it. It is the starting point, the momentum, and the invisible wealth that ensures you are never truly taking a risk, because the end is already secure. In this way, faith is not just the currency of the game, it is the guarantee of the win. Winning means playing for joy, not just for outcome. There is a secret in this game that reveals itself only to those who have moved beyond chasing results. The truest victory is not found in the final score, but in the state you hold while you play. Florence Scovel Shinn reminded us that the real success of life is measured not by the outcome alone, but by the quality of mind and heart with which we approach each move. A player who wins with tension, fear, or constant pressure is not truly victorious. They have merely completed a round without ever experiencing the fullness of the game. Neville Goddard's teachings point to the same truth. When you live in the state of the wish fulfilled, you are no longer postponing joy until the board looks a certain way. You allow yourself to feel the completeness now, and from that completeness, you act. This does more than just make the journey pleasant. It creates a magnetic alignment where moves and opportunities seem to flow without strain. The game responds to the frequency of joy with a generosity that effort alone cannot command. From a scientific lens, Bruce Lipton's work shows that a body in joy functions optimally. Its chemistry supports creativity, problem-solving, and resilience. When joy is the foundation, even challenges become less threatening, because you are not bargaining with your happiness to reach a specific square. You are already living in the emotional wealth you thought was reserved for the end. This is where the joy-first rule transforms the way you play. When your emotional state is prioritized before any move, you stop treating life as a series of tests you must pass to feel worthy. You begin to approach the board with lightness, curiosity, and openness, which in turn reveals strategies and opportunities that a pressured mind would overlook. Winning, then, is no longer a rare event at the end of a long struggle. It becomes the way you experience every turn, every shift, every unfolding moment of the game. Become the designer of the game. When you stand at the edge of the board and truly take it in, something begins to shift inside you. What once looked like a random scattering of pieces starts to reveal an order, a rhythm, a quiet intelligence at work. Florence Scovel Shinn's principle emerges clearly. Life rewards the conscious player. This doesn't mean the one who works the hardest in fear or pushes the most in desperation. It means the one who understands that the game responds to presence, to inner alignment, to deliberate choice. So many live as though they are pawns, moved by forces they cannot control, hoping for a lucky break or a sudden turn in fortune. Yet, as Neville Goddard so often reminded his listeners, you are not the pawn, you are the one moving the pieces. This truth, once accepted, changes everything. It strips away the sense of helplessness and reveals a kind of authorship over your own story. The question stops being, what will happen to me? And becomes, what will I choose to make happen through the state I occupy? The pieces on the board are not separate from you. They are extensions of your consciousness. Every interaction, every opportunity, every apparent obstacle is molded by the assumptions you hold. If you carry the assumption that life is against you, The game will continually reflect that belief, not out of malice, but out of obedience to the state you have declared as truth. If you carry the assumption that life bends to your alignment, that every move is leading you to greater expression of your true self, then the board reorganizes to fulfill that expectation. Bruce Lipton's research on the subconscious makes this principle practical. From childhood, patterns of thought and feeling are programmed into your subconscious, becoming the game code that runs quietly in the background. Most people play according to code they didn't choose, handed down by family, culture, and past experiences. This code decides how you interpret the board, whether a challenge is an opportunity or a trap, whether an open door is a gift or a danger. And yet the code is not fixed. It can be rewritten, deliberately and consistently, until it reflects the identity of a player who wins with grace, clarity, and joy. Rewriting the code does not happen through sheer effort alone. It happens through conscious re-identification. You stop rehearsing the identity of the struggler, the one who must force and chase, and instead inhabit the identity of the one who plays with mastery. This is not pretending. It is an act of alignment. The more you dwell in this chosen identity, the more the subconscious accepts it as the new baseline. And as the baseline shifts, the game naturally reorganizes itself around it. The outer world cannot help but mirror the inner transformation. But here's the final, perhaps most liberating truth. Even mastery of the rules is not enough if you forget the joy of the play. The deepest form of winning is not reserved for the moment you reach the final square. It is woven into every step along the way. Florence Scovel-Shinn spoke of playing the game with a light heart, with the knowledge that the journey itself is a reward. Without joy, victory can feel hollow. Without joy, even a successful move can carry the weight of exhaustion rather than the lightness of fulfillment. Neville would say that when you live in the state of the wish fulfilled, joy is not postponed. You are not bargaining with life, holding your happiness hostage until a specific piece lands exactly where you want it. You feel the completeness now, and from that completeness, you make your moves. This transforms the game into something more than a series of calculated steps. It becomes a living experience, rich with connection, meaning, and unexpected beauty. From a physiological perspective, Bruce Lipton's findings affirm that joy creates coherence in the body, synchronizing mind and heart. In this state, your perception expands, your intuition sharpens, and your capacity for creative solutions increases. The board itself seems more welcoming, more fluid, as if it recognizes the vibrational state you are holding and responds in kind. This is why joy is not an indulgence. It is an advantage, a strategic asset that fuels every level of the game. To become the designer of the game is to hold the rules in one hand and the joy of play in the other. It is to understand that while you cannot control every piece directly, you can always control the state from which you move. And it is that state, the blend of clarity, trust, and delight, that writes the unfolding story. When you play from this place, you no longer fear loss because you know the game is infinite, and each move is simply part of an ever-evolving dance. So step onto the board not as someone chasing a single, desperate victory, but as the player who knows that every turn is already leading to greater expression, greater connection, and greater joy. Master the rules so you can bend them, honor the code so you can rewrite it, and hold your vision so lightly that life can surprise you with more than you imagined. The game is yours. It always has been. And every move you make from here is a move in the story you have chosen to write.